Welcome into a live edition of the FutureSox RoundUp. My name is Elijah Evans, and I am joined by my co-host Jeff Cohen today. We're trying something a little new today here on the Roundup. This is going to be an interesting little test for us, and we're hoping everybody bears with us here and has a little bit of a good time here. So I am at home in California, but Jeff is live in Charlotte for Noah Schultz's AAA debut. So we thought we would try something a little different. I know there's a White Sox game going on right now. It's actually a pretty good game. There's a Charlotte game going on. There's all different stuff going on. So if you're not able to join us live today, hopefully you're able to check in with this over the weekend potentially as we record here on Thursday the 19th. But we're gonna see what happens. We're gonna see how this goes. Jeff, how are things in Charlotte? How are we doing?
It's pretty exciting. Obviously, you can feel the excitement about Noah Schultz making his first start. I was sitting behind home plate for the first two innings, and Tony La Russa and Matt Zaleski, the White Sox pitching coordinator, were sitting a couple rows behind me, a couple scouts. Some of Noah's family was nearby.
Nice.
And I got a couple of messages from some FutureSox followers that they were coming up to watch Noah in person. So, yeah, a lot of excitement in the ballpark.
Nice. It's going to be cool, man. I mean, so right now as we stand, Noah is through the fourth inning. Just gave up 3 runs there in the fourth, unfortunately. But all things considered, pretty good stuff. Generally speaking, from Noah, it's a tough thing making that transition to AAA. Obviously, we know that Charlotte's a very hitter friendly park, and in general, it's just a hard transition getting ready for that next step and that next stage of minor league baseball. So, not surprised that there's some ups and downs. It happens, but all things considered, through 4 innings, I'm curious to see if Noah will get a fifth. He's at 63 pitches right now, but through 4, it's been solid. 4 innings. Kind of this interesting thing here is, so we have Savant data, right, which is cool because you don't get public Savant data until we get to AAA level. So getting to see Noah's data for me is where I get really excited, because I've gotten to see parts of it here and there over the years, but now it's kind of interesting to see where his data is at right now. And today, so 26 fastballs and 26 curveballs, which Savant is qualifying them as. Interesting to see here that Schultz, I mean, the slider is kind of blending into a little bit of a slurve, right? I think that's kind of where the pitch has been trending. And Savant is actually categorizing it as a curveball. So at this point, he has, 26 curveballs, 26 sinkers, but kind of still considering that the slider, in my eyes, more of the slurve pitch there. And in addition to 5 changeups, 5 four seams, and then 1 pitch that got categorized as a slider, while 26 got categorized as a curveball, which is, I don't know what exactly that is. But all things considered, a zone percentage is going up. He's been able to kind of get that, 62% on the breaking ball there of a strike, and in the zone, the sinker's at 58%. So decent amount of stuff there. 5 whiffs on the breaking ball, 3 whiffs on the sinker. That 1 whiff on a changeup. Changeup's been a little more iffy, but 10 whiffs so far, 32% whiff rate, 23 or 13 called strikes for Noah so far. So all things considered, yeah, it's 4 runs in 4 innings, sure, but like pretty solid start here from Noah. I think pretty solid chance to just test it out and see what things look like at this level. And I'm excited to keep going on. But 8 swing and miss, it's a decent day overall. I'm curious to see how things will trend up from here, but a solid debut nonetheless so far from Schultz.
Yeah, I liked it. In the first inning, it looked like he was a little amped up, and fastball was all over the place. But as soon as he walked the hitter and had the first sign of damage, he went to the breaking pitch, and that was the end of that. And so I think 4 pitches and a strikeout.
Yeah.
So, I love that. And this is going to be bad broadcasting, but I'm going to stand up for a second. They stationed me on the conference and the first base line. Look at the bullpen and see if somebody walked up to replace no one else did it. And I don't see anybody. Yeah. So I guess he's heading back out.
Getting 1 more, hopefully. That'd be good to get another inning out of Noah. This is funny. This is definitely a new territory for us, so we're testing this out. But a solid debut nonetheless so far through 4 innings for Schultz. I was a little surprised. I was excited. Obviously, I got to break the news of Schultz going up to AAA. I was very excited to see it, but also was definitely a little surprised. I expected this at some point this year, but I didn't expect it to be quite this soon. And I think that with Schultz, they'd rather him get this tough, challenging experience in AAA as opposed to kind of setting eggs. The guys Grant Taylor did in the bullpen. Like I think with Schultz, it's like there's some noticeable changes the past couple starts he made in Birmingham, and from there it's like let's take those starts and let's build on it at the next level and let's challenge him with these big league level hitters he's going to be facing, right? And we'll see where it goes from there. So it's going to be a really unique, interesting kind of experience for him in AAA because you're still limiting the innings somewhat, right? But you're also trying to give him that experience and see what those adjustments he's made do at the next level. So I think that Schultz is going to be fine. I think he'll have some ups and downs, of course, and I think as every young pitcher will at that level. But I do think that this is a really cool experience. You get to see the White Sox top pitching prospect, at the highest level, and also be in the same lineup every day, or same team right now as Colson and Brian Ramos and Brooks Baldwin and all these other guys that he's kind of come up the system with right now. It's going to be a cool energy for this guy to get a chance there.
A quick question, Elijah. I know you posted your thoughts briefly on Brian Bannister's comments about Noah Schultz and his pitch mix and how they're challenging him. What have you seen differently based on what we learned from what Brian had to say?
Yeah, I mean the cutter is pretty non-existent, and that's the interesting thing is that the harder, sharper cutter from his variation of a slider is pretty much non-existent there, and that's something that Bannister had mentioned in that interaction on Twitter that we were talking about. It's fascinating to see where he's kind of where that shift has gone. They're leaning into that breaking ball and everything, right? And it's generally getting to adjust his profile a little bit. So I think that the idea there is that you're focusing on the sinker and the breaking ball, and then you're getting a little bit more mix of that changeup, and you're not doing as much of the cutter. The cutter became, the way Bannister explained it, it made his, made him a little too linear, and it made the pitch sequencing, right? So I think you're adjusting that, and you're going to now see a little bit of a different approach from Schultz and the way that he's kind of attacking batters on a regular basis. I'm curious to see where it's gonna take him and what it's gonna look like for him. But I do think that you're gonna get even more emphasis on that breaking ball because it is an excellent pitch, and you're seeing that today. Obviously that's his first start in AAA, and he's thrown 41% of that breaking ball, and gotten 5 whiffs on it and 6 called strikes on it too. Because when he lands that pitch for a strike, it's a hard pitch to swing at for a batter. It's a hard pitch to pull trigger on when you're coming from that left-handed release, 7 feet plus of extension, right? That long arm slot. You're seeing that breaking ball, and you almost don't even want to touch it, and then it kind of just loops in there for a strike sometimes, which Schultz has been able to do effectively a handful of times today.
And his third pitch being the changeup, how many has he thrown of those, and how effective?
He's thrown 5 today. He's thrown 5 today. He got 1 whiff. 3 of the 5 were in the zone. He got hit pretty hard. 2 of them got hit pretty hard today. In terms of exit velo. It's still a work in progress for sure. But I do think that with the reduction of that cutter and the way they're adjusting his sequencing, you're going to have to see more of that changeup at some point, or you're going to have to see him develop, an additional offering, or maybe work in the four seam a little bit more if he wants to work top of the zone a little more with the four seam, right? Like there's going to have to be a little bit of continual growth at this AAA level now with different guys, adjusting and changing more of that stuff. So we're going to see what happens, but I'm very curious to see the way the sequencing will change over his next few starts, because I do think the organization wants to keep changing and tweaking and fine tuning what he looks like in terms of, when he gets up to the bigs, eventually you're going to have to keep giving guys different looks, and it can't just be that sinker, breaking ball, right? You're going to have to keep adapting and finding more ways to attack hitters for a guy like that.
So, stepping back a little bit, I'm curious, here we are, June 19th, and Noah's in AAA, and we've had several big promotions to the major leagues. And I think I'm kind of feeling like the team is just so much further than where I ever expected they would be. These are a lot of the moves I was kind of looking for around the trade deadline, and here it is in the middle of June, and we're seeing it. I think White Sox fans have to be thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, right, the record still is not pretty. They're still losing plenty of games. They're still going to lose plenty of games this season. But the difference there with losing games is that you're getting, that this development you talk about, right? You're getting positive development from some of these young guys. You're seeing guys progress within the farm system. And that is really what the season is all about. It's less about, where we're at with players. It's less about where you're at with the team winning and more about where you're at with the continual development of these core pieces, and with Schultz being one of those guys, right? So I think you got to feel pretty good about where the system's at, in my opinion. I think you've got some guys that are going going to be on the way still, right? I think Brooks Baldwin will be back soon enough. I don't know why he's not getting innings already. I think you're going to see Colson up this year. I think you're going to see Brian Ramos back this year. Brian Ramos has been sneaky, very solid the past few weeks. I think that's another guy who I think we've kind of forgotten about, right? Because he's fallen under the the radar of with all these other guys on the team. But Ramos is another guy who should get a few more big league innings this season, right? So you're going to get a lot of guys that are going to get innings. I think there's still some relievers that need to get some innings, right? I think you're still going to see Peyton Pallette later in the season. I think you'll see Addison Coffey later in the season. Grant Taylor's up now in the bullpen, right? There's all these different options and all these different players you're going to keep seeing at the big league level. And I think that's something that we're going to be really excited about. And it's a positive thing to get to the chance to just see what these guys look like at the next levels and as they kind of keep rising up the ranks, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I posted it about a week or so ago, probably right after the Grant Taylor promotion, but I love the decisiveness of the organization. They're moving guys along. They're not playing games with service time. And that's why, even though, I'd like to see Brooks Baldwin and I'd like to see Tim Elko back in the major leagues, I'm confident it's going to happen sooner than later. So I'm not really sweating it anymore.
There's going to be a lot more guys. Yeah, I think that the organization has shown they've made it very clear right now that there is an intention and there's a plan right now, and there's a plan to let guys get up when they need to get up. Like there's no hesitation, and there's even maybe a slightly quick trigger on promoting guys, which I'd rather see a little bit of a quick trigger than a super slow trigger, and kind of just hogging guys down in the minors just because to save their time, right? There's a balance, right? You don't want to push guys too far, but I do think that promoting some of these guys is going to be a positive thing ultimately for this team and the organization, just to keep having that core build and develop together and grow together and see this young team really start to blossom at the next level and at the big league level. It's going to happen with some time. I just think it's going to take a little bit, and we're going to keep seeing what happens. But I do feel pretty confident in the fact that this team is building slowly, and there's positive things happening. And now it just comes down to what the next step is and who the next guys are. And with Noah, I think Noah's going to debut this year. I really do. And I don't know when that's going to be, but I think that it's now that he's in Charlotte already. I think it's pretty clear that he's going to debut this season. It's just going to be a matter of how many innings you really want to give him. Is it a bullpen role for a month? Is it a 4 starts at the end of the season? Like, I don't know exactly how they'll manage it. I could see it going different directions, whether it be a bullpen role or a couple starts or whatever it is. But I do think that they're going to get, a decent amount of run at the next level, and I think that Noah's going to get a chance to show it this year, and then he'll come into 2026 with a rotation spot if he can claim it, right?
Yeah. The good news is Noah's back out for the 5th inning. The bad news is I think he just gave up a home run to Sandy Leon. Do you know what the pitch was?
I'm a little behind on it, so I'm going to see it on my screen in about 2 seconds. So we'll see.
Okay. All right.
Looks like a breaking ball that just completely stayed up, unfortunately. It was a breaker. Definitely stayed in the heart of the zone, not where you want to put that pitch, unfortunately. It just kind of came right on him. That's the thing with that slider, that unfortunately that breaking balls, what a curveball and savant, whatever. If you're going to throw it to a right-handed hitter from Schultz's slot, right? If it's going to come right in on a guy, that can lead to some pop, right? If you're bringing a breaking ball into a guy's hands, that's going to ultimately result in some hard contact sometimes. So you got to keep that down. That's right, Ian. I should just call it a slurve from now on. I think I'm just going to call it a slurve because it is really becoming a slurve. If you're going to leave that slurve kind of in coming in at the zone, right? Like that's. It's tough. It's a tough pitch if you can't leave that up, especially against right-handers. You got to get that below the zone for that to have any chance of being effective. So, unfortunately, a homer there. Let's see if he can finish out this inning strong. But like I said, the results from this game in my mind are not important really. I think seeing what he's got going, that's what matters. I think just looking at where he's at, continuing to build up those innings, let him work, and we'll see where things go from there. But I'm not too concerned with the actual results of this game personally.
No, I hear you. So while that's going on behind us, do you want to take a tour of the White Sox minor league, or do you want?
Yeah. Let's just do a talk through some of these key guys. That's a nice little strikeout there from Schultz, 95 miles an hour. We like that.
Okay, I think you're a little behind though.
I'm sure I'm behind. Yeah.
Yeah, nice little diving catch here.
That one I didn't see. I saw the strikeout though. That's nice. We'll take that. Strikeout of Connor Capel on the fastball. He got up to 96 there on that last strikeout pitch on the fastball.
Oh, nice. I'm leaning just a little bit around the pole so I can see the speed of the pitches and the identification of them. All right, so let's head down to the minor leagues while we, at the same time, continue to watch Noah pitch in the fifth.
Yeah, for sure. I want to head down to Birmingham and we'll talk about yesterday's start. I was able to sit down and watch pretty much all of Tanner McDougal's Double-A debut yesterday. Jeff, I got to tell you, Ian. This is shout out to Ian for this one because Ian's been on this guy forever. Tanner McDougal is becoming himself as a pitcher this season, and that is completely abundantly clear for anybody who's watched in the past few years. Like this is a guy who's always had stuff. He was an 18-year-old draft pick coming out of high school when the White Sox drafted him in 2021, and you saw the upside, you saw the stuff. There was people raving about him, right? And it really just had not come together. It's taken him a long time to find that command, to define kind of what he is as a pitcher and who he can be as a pitcher. You look at last year where he, his first season in full season in Kannapolis, he got surgery, whatever. He missed all of 2022, comes back in 23, has a very solid first season in Kannapolis, a lot of strikeouts, but still some command issues, still gets hit a little bit here and there. Last season takes a big step backwards, unfortunately, in Winston, really struggled there, goes back down to Kannapolis to finish out the year, finishes the year strong, but you still see not quite the fullest version of himself. This season, Jeff, Tanner looked really good in Winston, and he threw 13 starts in Winston, 73 strikeouts across 53 innings, a 3.28 ERA there. Yesterday in Birmingham, his Birmingham debut in Double-A, like he was mowing guys down. It was 98 to 99 with the fastball with a lot of life on it. The breaking ball was diving off the table, and you're just seeing a guy who's just becoming himself. And you see him get through 5 innings with 10 strikeouts, gives up a run in the fifth inning, the sixth inning, gets pulled, whatever. But like through seeing Tanner McDougal go through 5 innings in Double-A and look as good as he did, shows me that that's a guy who's going to debut next season, honestly. And it's crazy to see from a guy who was demoted to Single A last year. And now we're talking about him being a guy that will probably debut next season. And I think could be in Charlotte actually by the end of this season, honestly.
Yeah, you're right. To consider that he was sent from Winston back to Kannapolis, and now he's on the cusp of great things, whether it's Charlotte or Chicago. I watched, I think, 2 of his starts this year in Winston, and they were impressive. He controlled those breaking pitches. He is so good. Like you say, he's got the huge fastball.
Yeah, it's really lively. I mean, the fact that he was sitting 98, 99 yesterday through his entire first start in Double-A was pretty ridiculous stuff for McDougal. And this is a guy that I think, he was at edge of the top 30. I think he missed our top 30 actually. But it's like, this is a guy who I think is going to not only, climb well back into the top 30, but he could be a top 15 prospect in the system when you really look at the stuff he's got and then the way he's honed his stuff this year. And, this season through 63 innings now in the year, 83 strikeouts, only 34 walks compared to 58 walks last year. He's giving up minimal hard contact. He's still walking too many guys for sure, but it's not to the point where it's damaging him the way it is. And when he's on, he's dominating, and he's able to get himself out of jams in ways that he never was last year.
Yeah. It's exciting. Another name to throw in the hat is a potential guy in Chicago next year.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I do think this is another good point. Continuing, in Birmingham, right? I think there's a lot of these guys that are going to move quickly in this pitching staff right now. You look at guys like Shane Murphy, who's been exceptional. Shane Murphy has been ridiculous late. Shane Murphy's Shane Murphy's last 5 starts in Birmingham, he's got a 0.9 ERA, 23 strikeouts and 1 walk. And then you got a guy like Jake Palish, whose last 5 starts, you're looking at 29 innings of 1.5 ERA ball. And these are guys that are not going to dominate. I don't think these are, high-end big league starters. I don't even think they project as big league starters. But depth guys that are getting out, they're churning out, they're going to be in Charlotte soon enough. And I think that at the very least, if you can squeeze a decent bullpen innings out of a guy like Shane Murphy or Jake Palish, you're in a pretty good spot if you can get some solid, bullpen outings out of those guys, and or even just some depth organizational guys. You'd love to see those types of guys develop well. And then beyond that, you've got, plenty of other guys who are doing their thing across that stretch of time, right? Riley Gallins has been pretty effective of late, 26 strikeouts across his last 21 and 2/3 for Gallins in his last 4 starts. Another guy in the bullpen to mention is Zach Franklin. He's been very, very good. Zach Franklin's been good all season, but Zach Franklin's a guy who I think could legitimately make the White Sox bullpen better, like within a month or two. Today he might make the White Sox bullpen better, honestly. Franklin's fastball is one of the most interesting fastball characteristic shapes of those guys at the minor league level. And I think that, he's going to continue to rise up. He's got 42 strikeouts across 28 innings in Birmingham. So a lot of those Birmingham pitchers should be moving fairly soon, I think.
I'm going to stop you for a second because we have a guest. Tony, how you doing? Thank you for joining us. We're on Zoom, so I'm just going to put the camera on you and sit off here to the side and introduce
How's it going?
This is my podcast partner, Elijah Evans.
How you doing, Tony? What'd you think of Noah's first start here today in Charlotte?
Can you hear? Okay.
You go, Jeff.
What did you think of Noah's first start here in Charlotte?
Well, I think it's a learning experience. He shows a good arm. He's a real pitches. He just made several mistakes, which was a breaking ball. Right. Third time lower league, he could go for a strike up here. He doesn't have a good down break. Good punch.
Right. What do you need to see from him going forward, do you think, here in Charlotte?
Well, he's going to have to get the over breaking ball and there's a finishing breaking ball. And he had trouble making it shows that he can make that pitch. All right, just not turning, but he's fastball. Probably got to move the fastball around on that thing. He was a little too tough for him.
Can you guys hear?
A little bit, not too much.
All right. Well, we'll move it a little closer. Keep trying.
Yeah. Heard about the sequencing, Jeff. Can you explain a little bit of what he was just saying?
You're going to try again and talk a little bit about his sequencing and what he needs to do different.
Well, he's got the ability to mix it up.
Yeah.
If you're a hitter, he can get a fastball on either side of the plate. He got a little predictable against left-handers, kind of odd over. And common mistake for young guys, they think if there's a breaking ball and they throw for a strike, it's going to be an out.
Yeah.
And the ones that are just hitters that don't have a lot of down breaking, they can get clubbed. And he got hurt 2 or 3 times, so he just got to know it's a finishing breaking ball. He'll have, because he showed some good ones. Mm-hmm. He also showed changing, and he also threw the super. So he's a great talent. He's going to put some big leagues and be a very good pitcher.
What did you think of the changeup?
Outstanding. I don't think enough guys understand how nowadays guys are so clued into hitting velocity, ready to swing, that off-speed pitch is really a difference maker. It really gets you in a bind. So you can throw something slow and something hard, then you've got something going for you. If you're hard all the time, they'll get you sooner or later.
Right. And so you've been going around watching all 4 of the White Sox affiliates. And so you've seen the White Sox, the Charlotte team here a lot. I wanted to get your thoughts on Colson and Ramos in particular.
Well, they're outstanding talents. Ramos, you really have more of a middle field approach. And it's happened so much to these guys. And it really is a problem in this beautiful ballpark. They get either from their agents or their friends or the media about how many home runs, how many extra base hits. They start trying to get big and hit for exhibition, just making hard contact. It works against you. And that to me is here lately. Ramos looks more like he's his old self. Close was really close. But he's got pitches he can hit a line drive on. He still can't drive him out of the park, which they all do it. And he's a smart guy. Don't make the adjustment. Just try to hit for a high average. The home runs are coming.
Try and take it up the middle so you'll stay close.
Think the middle, but just try to hit a line drive. Don't try to flip everything.
Yeah.
Right. And how about Colson? Are you seeing a different hitter here in the last couple of weeks?
Well, I can see the work that he did with Ryan Fuller gave him good, but he like a lot of guys come in here, their swing gets bigger because they know if they get the ball here, it might be out of the park. And that's kind of productive to make him hard contact all the time. So he'll follow pitch up. They all do. If you ask about Colton, he's got a he just takes hard line drives to hit more home runs.
Okay.
Jeff, do you want to ask if there's anybody else in the system that has really stuck out from just this season so far?
Okay. Anybody else you've seen in the other three affiliates, Kannapolis, Winston, and Birmingham, who stood out?
Well, one of the problems with Michigan is you can leave somebody out.
Right.
They actually have really improved the talent of the organization.
Yeah.
You go to Kannapolis, you see some guys like George. He's going to play in the big leagues. They got catchers at Turner and AA, and now I see that they've got Montgomery and Winston-Salem, but they also have Antonacci. There's Leon Gallion, who was here for
Mogollon?
No, he was a good second baseman that's down in Kannapolis. But there's a right-hand hitter that was at Winston Hayes.
Oh, Delaney. Yeah.
He sets up there like a hitter. So they've got some talent. They got some pitching talent. They're developing some relievers. So the future is very bright. Just got to let them play and keep learning.
Have you had a chance to see Jacob Gonzalez lately? Because the last month or so, he's been on a tear.
Well, he's more like it was last year. Last year, he was a good-looking hitter. Here again, you just don't know what gets into these guys' minds. If you see it all over baseball, you know or suspect that somebody's been telling him that you got to make an impression. There's power you can generate. And the fact is, the really good hitters just try to hit the ball hard. And if they hit the ball hard, if you got power, you hit more home runs. Park or base hits. And if you don't have power, you're just going to make foolish outs and not get on base. So, he wasn't the same hitter he was in AA last year.
Right.
He might be a little discouraged going back there. He wanted to come to AAA.
Probably.
But lately, he's looking more like himself. He's line drives all over the park.
Yeah, very exciting. What about a guy? You want to ask him about Tanner McDougal, who we just started talking about?
Yeah, we were just right when you walked up, we were talking about Tanner McDougal and his debut last night. Holy cow.
Yeah, that's an example of the guys that are coming. That's why people in Chicago that think it's just propaganda or people trying, but the truth is, yes, on the pitching mound is very important. There's also position players, and he's an example. I remember when I first saw him, not only does he have nasty stuff, but it's more than one pitch, and he commands it to hit areas. So I think he's going to move quicker, just like the young man that's just up there saving games.
Grant Taylor.
Oh yeah, Grant Taylor. Yeah.
He had another good day today.
Yeah.
What about Grant Taylor allowed him to be someone that went so quickly?
He was a little closer last one.
What was it about Grant Taylor that we'll rally going, don't we? One or two quick questions. I'll let you get back to the game. I really appreciate your time. Very fine. What was it about Grant Taylor that allowed him to move so quickly? I think a lot of us were surprised that here he is. It's mid-June. He's in Chicago.
Well, there was a lot of guys so hard to rear back and fire, but not many guys consistently throw the ball in the strike zone or on the edge of the middle. And especially a guy like him, he can get the ball up in the strike zone or down the strike zone. And this is important. He's got something off speed. They just can't sit hard on him. Like he gets a lot of outs and breaking stuff and a little bit court ball. So, just got to keep him healthy. He's going to be a major force.
I want to ask you about one last player, Sam Antonacci. Because I watch him, and he's an on-base machine. He's got a really simple swing. He gets the bat on the ball. He's got a great plate discipline. He walks a lot. But he's not the fastest guy. And his defense is solid. But I'm wondering, what do you see there in terms of his ceiling?
If the organization's smart and the wife's not smart, you recognize a talent like Sam, he's a confident in his play. He's going to start a rally. He's going to advance a run. And if he's got a chance to drive and run, he'll hit a line drive someplace. He had a guy named Blasco Polanco. It was the same type of player. Yeah. Line drive type of 300. He's got 50 career on the ticket. So Sam just got to keep his mind straight. Fill the park with line drives. Be aggressive. But, play defense. Be a good base runner. Big leagues. Teams win with everybody. Compliment the guy.
Thank you for your time. Really.
Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right. I'll
Appreciate it. Well, that was pretty cool.
How about that?
Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, some great insight. I think he's sort of set up base here in Charlotte and is just going around from one affiliate to the next, watching games and passing along information up the chain of command.
Yeah, it's fascinating
John
for
Hawk,
sure.
had a chance to meet him, and he's a really generous guy with his time.
Yeah, no, that was pretty cool, Jeff. Appreciate you setting that up. It's I wish we had a little bit better audio, but I got most of that, so it's good. No, we heard some of that for sure. Yeah, no, it's funny. It's definitely. Oh man, the Sox just blew their game. Nice. But that's how it goes. It's how it is. But yeah, no, that was pretty cool. It's cool to hear the insight for sure. And I think he's completely right about a lot of stuff he said about Noah too. For people that are tuning in, he was kind of emphasizing, the young pitcher trying to figure out that sequencing. You can't just get those, those breaking balls. They can't just be a strike. They have to be in certain parts of the zone to be effective at the higher levels, right? And you saw that today, right? There was a few breaking balls that were very good, and there was a few that got hit really hard too. So it's a blend of both, I think, and I think it's going to be that continual process for Noah to figure it out. But all things considered, in my mind, an encouraging debut for him. And I think that it's yeah, for sure. That is, I would agree with you.
He is at 78 pitches and back out for the top of the sixth.
He is?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see it. Let's see another start of the inning for Noah Schultz here.
This is great. Well, that was I'm really shocked that Tony joined us and Noah has pitched.
Right.
All right, so we were, I think we were in Birmingham talking about some of the guys.
Yeah, we can talk about a couple more guys. We can also end it early. We'll get some more time to talk about some guys next week for sure. But we'll get a couple more in here. Caden Connor is another one I should mention from Birmingham, and then we can head down to Winston. Caden Connor's past 15 days, so the last 2 weeks for Caden Connor, 1006 OPS for Connor. He's hitting 356 in the past 2 weeks. Caden Connor's a guy that you mentioned, and we both talked about at the beginning of the season, like an organizational depth guy, right? But he continues to play well, and he continues to have ups and downs, but it seems like he's settling into AA really well now. He started the year in high A, has been in AA now for 42 games, but this past 2 weeks has been real good. So we'll see where it goes for Connor, but it's nice to see him kind of find his groove here in Birmingham. Mentioned Jacob Gonzalez there. Tony spoke a little bit about him. Jacob Gonzalez looks like a better version of himself for sure. For the past couple of weeks, probably the last month in general, Jacob Gonzalez started to turn a corner and become a little bit more of what we had seen from him for a while. And what he was doing, his collegiate career, right? The last month for Jacob Gonzalez, an 830 OPS, getting on base at a 345 clip, 4 home runs, 8 doubles in that past month. So definitely improvement on the direction for Gonzalez. And that's a good thing to see from a guy who, is still hopefully going to be a piece of this team going forward.
Yeah, I think you and I have always been really fond about the potential for Caden Connor. So it's nice to see him getting going. And we saw in Winston when he and Delaney are both hitting, it's a powerful lineup.
Yeah, no, 100%. A few guys in Winston, we'll just breeze through some of the guys here. Antonacci, you just heard it from Tony La Russa. That's a ball player right there. I'm glad you're asking about it because He's a guy that I've been on for a year now, and I think is still not quite getting the recognition he deserves. The last 2 weeks, Jeff Antonacci is hitting 405. I mean, he's getting on base at a 511 clip in the past 2 weeks. He walks, he steals bases, he's hitting the ball with more authority than he used to. His zone contact rates are exceptional. I just talked about this on the call up with earlier today when I was recording that Antonacci, and he's just he was great. He's been great. He's been raking, and he just continues to put together really strong at bats in Winston Salem. Another guy in Winston, Brandon Montgomery's turning back around. He's had some ups and downs for sure. It's been a very up and down kind of stretch for him since getting to Winston. He got to Winston initially, was incredibly hot out of the gate, and then really had a rough couple weeks there where he was in a slump. He wasn't finding it. He was in a rough spot there for a little bit, but now his past 2 weeks, Montgomery's totally been back on track now, getting back in his groove once again. The past 2 weeks there for Braden Montgomery, he's got, where's my stats at? I'm losing all my numbers. The past 2 weeks, Braden Montgomery's got a 938 OPS with getting on base at a 370 clip in that span. He's got a couple homers. He's bringing the strikeout rate down a little bit again. So it's good to see Braden Montgomery refine that groove in Winston. And then Samuel Zavala has really been very solid of late. And seeing Sammy really figured out is good, because this is a guy who he's still young. He's still a very young player. And it was last season was hard to watch at times for him. I think he really was struggling at that level last season, but was still very young for the level. And now at 20 years old, he's going to be 21 in a few weeks. So this is kind of making a and his past few weeks have been pretty strong. So.
Yeah, I was in Winston last week. I asked three under belt. Were you watching the White Sox game?
No, I'm just listening. Your audio, the background music there is during the commercials are pretty.
Yeah,
pretty
they just took Noah out of the game. He's 5 in the third inning and 84 pitches, 7 hits, 5 home runs, a walk, 5 strikeouts, a home run, 84 pitches, 59 strikes. You got, like you were saying, you really got to be on the stand. Look at the big picture here.
For sure.
But Pat was saying that they had lost Antonacci. The offense was scuffling, and Montgomery just put so much pressure on himself to perform and carry the team, and you could just tell he was pressing, and that's really all it was. And kind of he went up. I think he had a 4-hit game, and he was able to relax again and get back to it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that whole offense is better when Sam Antonacci is in that lineup, and I think you can tell when he's back. And it's been very clear the past 2 weeks that it's a better lineup and a better team with him there in general. Let's mention a couple other guys, and then we can wrap. And I think we'll get into some more players in depth, and we got a little better auditory next week. This is fun to test out for sure, but a little bit challenging as well. A couple other guys I got to watch Christian Opper start as well yesterday. I was split screening the McDougal Opper starts, which was just baseball. It's my favorite watching. You get a few good pitching prospects at the same time. It doesn't get better than that. So I was able to watch Opper yesterday, and some ups and downs with the command still, but Opper still is really starting to find his groove in high A. Yesterday he looked the most comfortable he's looked there since getting to Winston. And I think that he really is starting to kind of just settle in there and feel more comfortable at the level. And that's a guy who I think you're going to start to see tick up even more as he gets more comfortable there. The strikeout numbers are lower than they had been in Kannapolis for sure. And obviously it's a higher level, of course, but I do think that Opper, where he's at right now, he's made 4 starts now in Winston. And I think that you're going to keep seeing him get a little bit better. He's made 5 starts in Winston now, actually. I think you're going to keep seeing him get a little better. His first 2 starts are rough, but his last 3, 2 runs allowed, 1 run allowed, and 1 run allowed. Yesterday, he's his longest start by far in Winston. He's able to go 5 full innings, only 1 walk yesterday, 5 strikeouts, really starting to look more like the Christian Opper that we saw in Kannapolis. And that's in only, a month of settling in there. So I think that Opper is a guy that's just going to keep getting better in Winston. And I really do think that, Opper's climbing up my rankings for sure. And I think that if you get him to Birmingham by next season, even, I don't think you need to rush it this year. I think he can finish this entire season in Winston, spend the rest of the year there. And then if you get him in Birmingham next year, I think you're looking at a guy that, at 22 years old could be a legit big league option come 2027, which is, even if maybe it's late next year, but he's only 20 years old, Jeff. So if he's going into 2027, possibility, you've got a 22-year-old lefty that added into the mix of all these other arms you've got there,
Yeah, I agree with you. Great upside. I'm not dissuaded at all by maybe the slow start in low A. I guess one thing you got to keep in mind, of course, is that this is his first year of pro ball, and so there's going to be Load management issues. I just don't know how much you're going to let him pitch
Yeah,
this year,
100%.
and have to manage it next year as well a little bit. So I think that would, that could slow the progress a little bit. But
Yeah,
he's
100%.
he's an exciting young arm. Yeah.
Yeah, very easy to a lot to dream on there with Opera and a lot to keep looking at, especially Opera and McDougal, that duo there that's kind of gonna hopefully climb together a little bit there with McDougal and Double A now and Opera and High A. I think they hopefully will rise up consecutively almost in a way, which would be really cool to see. A few names in the last few weeks in Kannapolis, and then we'll wrap. I mean, King George in Kannapolis is certainly found something. He has figured something out recently, these past handful of days, especially the past 2 weeks. The last 10 games for George Walkow, a 1190 OPS, only 8 strikeouts to 5 walks, 4 homers in those last 10 games. George Walkow is finding his groove in Kannapolis, and he's adjusting and making the adjustments needed. There's a reason this guy has the upside that we think he has, and it's going to take time for sure. It is definitely going to take plenty of time for George, but right now we're seeing 2 weeks of him being the player that we know he can be if everything really starts to click for him.
Yeah, and again, this is June 19th. We're pretty far into the month. Anybody can, have a hot week or a hot week and a half, but George's stats for the month, just like Zavala's stats for the month. I mean, it's not just it doesn't appear less and less like just a little hot streak, and it appears to be a sign of
Adjustments. Yeah.
real adjustments, real progress, real growth. I mean, it's stretching. It's about a month long for each of these guys. I think that is really significant. That
Yeah.
means
No, definitely. Lyle Miller Green, another one in Kannapolis who's been raking lately. That's a guy who,
yeah.
like, I don't know why Lyle Miller Green is still in Kannapolis, honestly. I think as a 24-year-old draft pick from last year, like, I'm good to see him in Birmingham, in Winston, pardon me. Like, now, I think. I mean, you've seen 2 weeks of him just mashing 1083 OPS in the last 2 weeks, 10 walks, a few homers, a few doubles. Like, it's just good overall approach from Lyle, and a guy that's, just he's a big power guy. He's an older college guy. Like, let's get Lyle to Winston-Salem. Rony Hernandez has definitely turned a corner the past few weeks. He looks like he's starting to kind of find his groove as the primary catcher there. His past 20 games, he has a 447 on base percentage. So that's a guy who's getting on base all the time. He's always been a guy that walks a lot. He doesn't strike out a ton. With Rony, it's really just about continuing to find more impact, which I'm hoping he will. But at the time being, like, he's getting on base at a very good clip. He's making good contact. He's not striking out a lot. Nice to see him kind of, take on the starting catcher role there and see what happens. And get moving forward with him.
Right. Today, Elijah, today is the last day of the first half of the minor league season for the lower levels of the minors, everyone but Charlotte. And so it seems like we're approaching a really good time to have some promotions. And certainly,
Yeah.
I think Grant Umberger is at the top of the list. Let's get
Yeah.
him to Winston and see what he can do. And when he goes, I agree, Lyle Miller Green should be right there with him. How soon would you expect to see promotions, and who is at the top of your list?
Probably in the next week or two for sure. And I think you're right. I think Umberger is a must. I think Umberger has to go to Winston. I mean, it's ridiculous. 34 strikeouts his last 29 innings. He has given up like one run a start, basically. He had a somewhat rough start per se this week where he gave up, I think, what did he give up? He gave up 5. Yeah, he did have a rough start. He gave up 5 runs this week, but that was coming off of 4 starts in a row where he gave up 0-0-1-0. So it's like, it's just, he's been too good. I know you let him bounce back a little from that start. I think once he has 1 or 2 more good starts in Canny, then he gets the bump. Probably 1 more. If he comes out next week and he shoves, I think you can feel comfortable giving him a bump after 1 more good start in Kannapolis. Yeah, just to bounce back from that 1 rough start, but soon enough for Umberger for sure. Lyle Miller Green as well. I think there's plenty of other guys that could still kind of make their way up in that system from that team. I'm looking at, Sneaky. I don't think he gets promoted because he's still very young, but sneaky, really good stretch from Luis Reyes here, Jeff. Last 4 starts, only allowed 1 run. He's been very good of late. So I'm excited to see what happens with Luis Reyes because he's only, 19 years old, I believe. Because he's only 19 all season, I don't think he goes anywhere. I think he'll stay in Kannapolis, but I think he's really starting to blossom into a better version of himself the past couple starts.
Yeah, he started the year great, then had a little bit of a hiccup, but you're right. Last month he's been lights out.
Right, and then in terms of relievers, Jack Young should already be in Winston. I'm not sure why Jack Young's not in Winston already.
He's hurt.
I think it's I think. Is he hurt now? I didn't
A
realize that.
little. I mean, I actually met his parents last night at the Kannapolis game, and they said he's back. It's not serious. They expect him back shortly,
Nice.
but yeah, he missed last week, which was
Yeah, I
unfortunate.
saw he missed a little bit of time, but once Jack Young's good to go, he should be in Winston for sure. That's another guy who just has earned that 100% and deserves to be up at
Great,
that next
great.
level sooner than later. So definitely a lot of promotions to come, I think, at many different levels, especially some of those candy guys. And then one more guy to mention who should take the place of Grant Umberger very soon in Kannapolis, Matthias Lacumbe. This is a guy that I've been harping on a little bit recently, and I posted what his numbers were looking like lately because he has been great. His last 5 games in the complex, he's got a 2 ERA. He's got 22 strikeouts, only 2 walks across his last 17 innings there. He's just too good of a pitcher to be, solid. And, I think he's at his age, he's already 22, 23 years old, right? Like it's time to see Matthias Lacumbe in Kannapolis, and that should be accompanied by Grant Umberger going up to the next level as well. So
This is probably more a question for our colleague James Fox. But are you aware of anybody else in Arizona who probably is something that should be coming to Canning soon?
Yeah, I think Adrian Gill is one or Adrian Heel. I think it's like Luis Heel of the Yankees. Adrian Heel is a guy who I think I've known for a little while because he had a decent season last year in Arizona and then made his way. I kind of expected him to be up this season in Kannapolis sooner than later because he spent all of last year at the Complex League. And now through 30 games of the Complex, he's got an 800 OPS. He's got 5 homers. He's stealing some bags. Adrian Hill's a guy that he's already 20. He's 19 years old, so he's still very young. But I could see Adrian Hill being a guy, infielder, middle, and kind of a versatile infielder. Has played mostly second base, I believe, mostly first and second for the most part. Actually, he's playing mostly first now. He's also catches a little, which is interesting. He's a versatile little. He came up as a catcher. I didn't know he was a catcher. I thought he was yeah, James says Gill, but I think it might be Heel. I'm not sure. But he's catching, which is interesting. I had no idea he was a catcher. That's a funny little tidbit there. That Adrian Keel, who's been a first base, third base guy most of his career, has caught 8 games now in Arizona, which is I don't know what that's up with. But in terms of the bat, he's probably the most ready bat from that core in Arizona, along with Lacumbe as a starter who should be in Kannapolis soon.
Yeah, sounds great. And then after those promotions, of course, and it won't be too much longer, we'll have the draft and have another way.
Yeah, we will have plenty of draft content soon. I know James and Ian had some draft coverage recently. I'm going to get my guy Pete Flaherty on here sometime soon to do some draft coverage. We'll have plenty of stuff coming up. This was a fun test. I hope and thank you to everybody who bared with us a little. It was cool to have Jeff in person checking out Noah Schultz, and special shout out to Tony La Russa for hopping on for a few minutes. That was pretty cool. Pretty cool move there by Jeff. And we'll get deeper into some of these prospects, and we'll dive into some more stuff next week on the roundup. But this has been a fun to test out, and it's cool to celebrate Noah's first AAA start by checking in on what's going on there. And we'll be back next week with some more White Sox prospect content.
Yeah,
thanks for making it happen, Jeff.
Sounds great, Elijah. A lot of fun. Appreciate your patience on your.
No, of course, we're all good. It was enjoy the rest of the game. Go Knights, and we'll talk next week. All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.